What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 61 of Stay Humble, Hustle Hard Live, where I interview the men and women building this country one business at a time so we can really dig down deep and find the why behind the business. You know, every person has a message and every message has a purpose. Here on Stay Humble, Hustle Hard Live, that purpose gets found. Big shout out to all my sponsors: Limitless Digital Media, Stern Marketing Academy, Mindset Mastery by Keith Newman, Universal Smart Apps by Manny Lopez, the internationally awarded best-selling author Robert J. Moore, BMC Accounting LLC with Brandon Cox, and James Merrifield Inspires by James Merrifield. I appreciate each and every one of y'all joining. If you are live, please drop a hashtag live. And if you're on the replay, please drop a hashtag replay. And let's get started. All right, I'm going to bring my guest in here. Today we have Mr. Brian K. Wright. All right, buddy. Bam. All right, so what is up, brother? Thank you so much for coming to the show.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me here, Tucker.
Oh, it's a blessing to have you here, man. I've heard a lot of good things about you, and we've been connected for a while. So before we get deep into this, tell everybody, who is Mr. Brian Wright? Just a little bit about who you are and where you come from, man.
Wow. How far back shall I go? Well, I have a background in education. So I taught public speaking and English composition and business math in a small 2-year college in Lincoln, Nebraska. Now you may wonder, that's a pretty interesting combination of classes. Well, they were all required. And so part of my job was to make it fun and interesting because these were classes that everyone had to take. And so not everyone wanted to be there. So I tried to make it fun. And I think the ability to communicate is extremely important, especially now, because studies show that 85% of your success will be determined by your ability to communicate and interact with people, and a very small percentage of your success has to do with your actual technical knowledge. So It's very, very important to learn how to communicate. And so I did that. And when I was in high school and college, I competed in speech contests, speech tournaments, went all over the Midwest and qualified for nationals my last year. And really had a great time. And I realized that speaking in front of groups was something that I could do fairly easily. And so it didn't always come easily, though. There was a learning curve for sure. I mean, anything worth doing well is worth doing badly at first. And at the very, very beginning, I wasn't always very good at it, but I got better pretty fast. So you just keep doing it. If you really want to get good at something, you just keep going and you don't give up. So it's very, very important. I ended up in Arizona about 20 years ago. I've been out here. I grew up in the Midwest and I came out here to Arizona, did some work in some call center environments, and I was doing my radio show while I was doing that. And so in 2012, I started my radio show, Success Profiles Radio. I interview world-class achievers and learn how they succeeded and what they overcame and what lessons we can learn. Started my magazine, Success Profiles Magazine, almost a year ago now, and I ghost write books for people and help people get their books done. So I managed to stay busy, and I love what I do. I love my time freedom. I love not needing a job anymore. My headphones just fell apart.
Yeah, I saw that. It's all good,
oh my God,
man.
That's embarrassing. Okay, so we're good.
All good. I was wondering. I was like, man, I think he just did a piece of his headphone just disappear? Like what?
Yeah.
Is that a special effect?
yeah, that was on purpose. But anyway, so I love what I do, and it's really important to love what you do. That's really, really very, very important. So that's my backstory in a nutshell.
That's awesome, man. So right now, I know that you run this radio show, but is that what you do? Is that your main form of business?
It's where everything starts. It's the platform by which everything starts, for sure. Because I get to network with people. I get to learn what people are doing, and people who are involved in my magazine usually were on my show first, or they are people who I've been strongly networked with for a long time. Okay. And so that's the basis for everything. I get to meet some really interesting people, and some really cool opportunities have come to me as a result of the show.
So tell me exactly. I mean, we got a cover of like where you come from and everything, but the business side specifically, could you give us just a roundabout of everything that you do in your business, all the different industries? I know you got a magazine, you got a show, and you do other things, but could you just give us all that in a nutshell?
Yeah, absolutely. I think with the radio show, it's been a real great opportunity to network with people. There have been opportunities that have come from that. There have been invitations to go to events. Uh, I got to do red carpet interviews at Greg Reed's Stickability event back in
Wow.
2013. Got to meet some really great people, some of whom have been on my radio show since. And I've repurposed some of those interviews into a book that got released earlier this year. It's called Success Profiles: Conversations with High Achievers. And so I repurposed some of those interviews into a book. And so that's one of the beauties of creating content and repurposing it, which I know is going to be something you'll want to ask me about later. But when you create a piece of content, how many different ways can you spin that? Because some people will hear your show, some people prefer to read, some people prefer to watch. It's all about people's different preferred learning styles. Now, your super fans will follow you no matter what you're doing.
Yeah.
But the people who don't know you, they'll find you, and then they'll want to know what else you do.
Yeah, definitely, and you're right, man. And I've got to do a better job of that. I know that I only recently just got really fast internet. So for the longest time, I was just going live on Facebook. Now I'm able to push out to YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, and all these different things. And you were right. I do want to ask you about that repurposing content. Because I know that personally, and tell me if there's a better way of going about this. I know that personally, you can take a Facebook Live and turn it into 10 different forms of content, and I mean, whether it be transcribing and putting it on this platform, or ripping the audio and putting it on that platform, whatever it may be. So tell me, what is the biggest importance behind repurposing content, and what are a few ways that people could go about doing that?
Yeah, it's really important because, like I mentioned, somebody might see or hear you one place and not in another. And so it's very important to get yourself out there in as many different ways as possible. For example, content from my radio show gets repurposed into my magazine. The person who's on the cover of my magazine has always been on my show first. And I repurpose content from that interview into a feature interview. And so I repurpose that, and I ask people who have been on my show to contribute articles. And it's just very, very important. You can do magazine articles, you can do blogs, you can do Facebook Lives. In fact, I've done a bunch of Facebook Lives based on the content from the book. I mean, 11 interviews are in this book, and I get a lot of golden nuggets from everybody that I interview. And so I pick one golden nugget from one person, and I do a 5-minute Facebook Live, and I can promote the book through Facebook Lives for months if I want to. And I have. So, and your Facebook Lives don't have to be long. I mean, I tend to keep it to around 5 minutes or so, give or take a minute or two either way, because I just want it to be something that's very easily digestible. And so I'll just pick one idea and talk briefly about 3 different things that I learned from that idea, and then I close it off and I share it out as often as possible, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's on Facebook. And magazine articles have come from my Facebook Lives. I get done and I think, oh, wow, this actually might be a really good article for the next issue of my magazine. Or it might be a really great idea for an article that someone else has asked me to do for them. So just always keep in mind, how else can you repurpose? I know a friend who will take a 1-minute snippet from his show and post that on Facebook as an enticement to listen to his entire episode. I think that's brilliant.
That
There's
is.
a lot of different ways. There's a lot of different ways to do this. I don't remember the name of the program that he's using to do that. I'll have to ask him how to do that. But you can rip audio and then put, customized screenshots in the background and create a 1-minute video.
Yeah, you can actually, Facebook used to, you had to alter the URL and all that to get a video from Facebook, but now Facebook just gave in, and you can click the little 3 dots at the top of a video and download it. And you can actually download anybody's content from Facebook. Not that you should steal someone's stuff, just saying that you can. So yes, and that is true. I mean, like you can take that and then take the audio from that after you download it and turn it into a podcast. So tell me go ahead.
I was going to say it's very, very useful to be able to download even other people's content from their Facebook videos, because that helps me when I am helping people write their books. In fact, I'm working with one client right now who is a LinkedIn expert, and he did a Facebook Live last week where he talked about 5 reasons why LinkedIn is a great way to promote your network marketing business. I said, oh my gosh, I've got to download that video. That actually would be a really great set of material for the introductory chapter. He says, go for it. I'll send it to you later. Well, I'll go back to that video and see if I can download it. But I mean, having other people's content there, it's really fantastic. So I mean, as long as you're giving credit to the person who gave the content, which obviously I will because it's his book. But people are, when I'm working with people to create their books, they're creating content that helps me put their book together, and they don't always know it. I'll say, wow, that actually would be really, really great for the book. Let me download that and use it. And usually they'll say, yeah, sure. Whatever makes your life easier. Why not?
Yeah. And you know, and believe it or not, for those of y'all who are watching and maybe don't have any idea how to download video content, look, if it's not your content on Facebook and you do want to download it, all you do is remove www from the URL and put the letter M and the word basic, BASIC, push enter, and it will take you to the original version of Facebook where you can right click the video and download it. So that right there is just a little quick tip for everybody. If you didn't know how to do that, that's the old school method, still works wonderfully. So tell me, out of everything that you do, man, like what is the greatest challenge that you seem to face on a day-to-day basis in your business or just in your world in general?
I'll tell you what, I do work with busy entrepreneurs, and the reason I do that is because they know what their message is. I think the biggest challenge is coordinating times for meetings and then having them always be able to honor the time. And now I'm not sharing that maliciously, but we get busy and things come up. Sometimes I've had people had to cancel or postpone their appearance on my show. And so we just reschedule that for another time, and that's fine. I always try and have at least one episode in the can just in case that ever happens. Or what I can do is I can forego the live show and make that up with them and tape it and then release it later the week, that week. That way, you know, it's done. In fact, my guest this week wants to tape it earlier than the live version because he's got something else going on. So we're going to be taping the show 3 hours early, and then the station's going to run it at its regular time. Yeah.
Wow.
So it won't be live today, but it'll be taped 3 hours in advance, and then it'll run today anyway. And so I'm doing that in just a few hours. So I'm excited about that. And it's a guest I've already had on before. So it's not like I'm preparing for someone I don't know. It's a lot easier to prepare for someone that you know. It really is.
Definitely. It really is. You're so right about that, you know, because I mean, it's just proper to go in and do research on who's coming onto your show and learn about them. And if you already know them, I mean, pop off the top. So man, I know that you've went through some insane challenges throughout your life, just absolutely mind-boggling challenges. And what I really want to know is how did that life-threatening illness that you come up with, like what was it and how did it impact your life?
That's a really great question. Well, I'll take you back to late 2013. I do remember feeling lethargic and not having very much energy and not having very much of an appetite. In fact, I was working part-time at a call center at the time, and I found myself needing to leave work early, which doesn't really bode very well when you're only working for 4 hours a day anyway. But I was having to leave work early and call in sick. And I do remember in mid-January, I was doing an episode of my show, and it took every ounce of energy I had just to get through it. In fact, I didn't even write the show notes after. I just went straight to bed at 5 o'clock local time. I was just so tired, and I couldn't eat. And I slept through the night. My parents were in town for the winter. I live in the Phoenix area, and so a lot of people come south for the winter. And my parents did that, and they spent the whole winter out here, and they brought their RV. And so I called them both, left messages with both of them on their cell phones to say, hey, I'm not feeling very well. And so Dad called me back first, and he says, would you like us to take you to a doctor? I said, yeah, that's actually a really good idea. So I drove out to where they were staying. There was an urgent care out that way. They treated me for pneumonia. So they prescribed a Z-Pack for me. And my parents insisted that I stay with them in their RV until I felt better. I thought, well, that's cool. So about 3 days later, this was on a Friday, I woke up. I thought I was feeling a little bit better. But at breakfast, after eating a half a strip of bacon, I said, I'm full. And Dad said, no, this is not right. You're going back to the doctor today. So I drove, and my mom was with me. We went back to that same urgent care and explained the situation. And then at this point, it all gets a little fuzzy because I had already filled out my paperwork. The next thing I remember is I'm sitting back in the office with the doctor, and my mom was sitting with me. I didn't remember Mom coming back to that office with me. She was out in the waiting room, but there she was. And the doctor was saying, he can't answer any of my questions. He's incoherent. He's not able to answer any of my questions in a complete sentence. He needs to go to the hospital right now, and I'm calling an ambulance. And Mom and I looked at each other like, what? I mean, it floored me. So the next thing I knew, I was strapped into a stretcher, and the ambulance was screaming down the highway. I ended up in the hospital, and I was in the waiting room, or in the emergency room. And the next thing I remember, there was a doctor who was telling me that we don't know what's going on. We don't know if it's flu, pneumonia, a combination, or something else, but you're going to be here a while, and we're going to test you for everything we can think of. And I said, oh, so for a while, you mean a few hours? And she goes, oh, no, a few days, a few weeks, perhaps. And I just wasn't grasping it. I just was so out of it. I wasn't grasping how serious this was. And at one point in time, she said, we may need to put you on a ventilator. I'm like, oh, what's that? I mean, just real flippantly, oh, what's that? Well, it's a machine that breathes for you, and we would have to stick a tube down your throat. And thank goodness she didn't say life support, because I would have freaked out. But I said, oh, I don't want that. And she says, well, we may have to do that. You just need to be prepared for that possibility. And I was in the ER for 6 hours. In fact, I asked my dad later, how long was I in the ER? And he said, you were there for about 6 hours. I said, oh, it felt like 45 minutes. So I must have slept. And so not too long after that, I was in the ICU because I heard her say something about ICU. And so I thought, well, I guess this must be serious if I'm in ICU. Turns out I had swine flu virus and pneumonia at the same time. Really brutal combination. I do not recommend it, but it was life-threatening. In fact, toward the end of my stay, I had more than one person say, we didn't think you were going to make it. We had very serious doubts about whether you were going to make it. In fact, we voted about putting you on a ventilator, and we ended up not doing it. We thought, we'll just give him one more day to see if he feels any bit better. And I started to improve very slowly, but I was on oxygen. I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I do remember the day they moved me to a regular room. This was after 8 days in the ICU. I figured if I'm in a regular room now, there must be light at the end of the tunnel. So I started telling everybody, I'm going home soon. Every doctor, every nurse, every therapist, every specialist that came in, I'm going home soon. And they all were saying, we hope so, except this one, the lung doctor. She said, we'll see. I'm like, I'm not telling you anything anymore. See, in life, you have to know who your cheerleaders are. You have to know who claps for you. And this lady wasn't. And she just was not fun. She was not fun. Yeah, whoa. I mean, it was pretty intense. In fact, one thing I will tell you that got me through this experience, and this is why I love having my radio show transcribed. It was very scary, yes. Several days before I went to the hospital, having no idea that's where I was going to end up, I read 2 transcripts from my show. And both of them were guys who ended up in the hospital with life-threatening situations. Now, I had no idea that was my situation. It was just by the grace of God that these were the 2 that I read. One was Hal Elrod. He was involved in a head-on collision with a drunk driver, and he lived to talk. He was actually dead for 6 or 9 minutes, 6 minutes, I think. He actually lived. And then my friend Matt Jones, who's a 3-time leukemia survivor, both of them were told that they may not live or they may not walk again, something very serious. Both of them rejected that idea. And instead they focused on, what am I going to do to impact the world when I'm out of the hospital? So laying in the hospital bed in ICU, as you can imagine, I had a lot of time to think. And so I remember saying, God, thank you so much that I read those 2 transcripts out of all the shows that I've done. I read those 2. And so I started asking myself, what can I do to impact the world when I leave? Now, I wanted to keep doing my show. and interview amazing people to share with the world. I wanted to do some speaking on stage, wanted to host a live event, which I'm going to do a live event next year. The magazine was not even on my radar. Ghostwriting was not even on my radar, but I wanted to think about how I could impact the world. And of course, the most important thing is I wanted to go home and play with mom and dad's dog. That's what got me through. You have to give yourself something to look forward to in life. You think about people who are in nursing homes who die on Christmas or the day after Christmas. Yes, I'm glad I'm feeling better too. But the reason they make it through the holidays and then die shortly after is because now they don't have anything to look forward to anymore. They wanted to see their relatives one more time. So I gave myself things to look forward to, and that's what got me through. And I believe that I'm in a position to impact the world a lot more now than then. And the reason I share that whole story is I did get 3 valuable lessons out of it. Number one, treasure your friends and family. You don't know when the last time is that you'll have a chance to say hello or goodbye to somebody. In fact, one thing that I do with my family and with my close friends and people who I value, the last thing I say to them after every conversation is, I love you. Now, why is that? Some people may think that's just really weird. Whether it's a guy, whether it's a gal, who cares? If you're my friend, I'm going to say I love you. Because if by some morbid chance that is the last time we ever get to talk, I want the last thing you remember of me is that I told you that I loved you.
Yes. You're sure that's so right.
Treasure your fans and friends and family. Number 2, be aggressively thankful for everything. And I said aggressively thankful. I mean, just always on the forefront of your mind, think about the things that you are grateful for. And if you need to write down a list of 100 things you're thankful for, do it. 100 may seem like a lot. The first 5 or 10 will be easy. But when you start thinking about 100 things, you start really thinking about things such as, I'm really thankful that I have air that I can breathe. Yes. Yeah. I mean, it gets real. You have to think about the things that you're thankful for. Maybe it might be, I'm really thankful that I didn't get a ticket this morning when I got stopped by a cop. That's something to be very thankful for. You don't want points on your driving record. So,
or even being thankful that you made it to your destination.
I'm thankful that I made it to my destination. Yeah. And so number 2 is be aggressively thankful. Number 1 was treasure your friends and family. Number 2, be aggressively thankful for everything. Number 3 is take nothing for granted because you don't know when your last day will be. It's not promised to anyone. I remember my dad saying that to me a lot. You don't know when your last day is. So I'm really thankful that my parents were there. They spent the whole winter down there and they were with me every day in the hospital, and they offered to let me stay with them during my recovery period for 3 weeks after. In fact, I was on oxygen for 3 weeks after my hospital stay. Wow. And it's interesting. Every time the nurses changed shifts, I remember one of them would always say to the other, respiratory failure. And the doctor had never shared that with me, but apparently I had respiratory failure going on. That must be why I was hooked up to oxygen. But it took a while for me to regain my strength back. In fact, at the depths of all of this, it would be literally physically exhausting for me to speak for more than 1 minute. And when you're used to doing an hour-long radio interview, an hour-long show, talking for only a minute and being physically exhausted isn't going to work. And so I put my show on hiatus for 3 months during this whole time. And by the time I was ready to do my show again, I let them know. But my show is such that my guest does the majority of the talking. I ask the questions, I have a conversation, and they do the most of the talking. Toward the end of that 3-week recovery period at home, I had a conversation with a friend on the phone, and the conversation lasted 45 minutes. And that was the day that I realized I can actually do this again.
Well, that's awesome,
I am very thankful. Yeah, it is awesome. So I'm grateful that I had the experience. I would not want to repeat the experience. Yeah. I have no idea how it happened. But there were other people in that hospital who were going through the same thing I did. In fact, there was a young mid-20-ish personal trainer who had the same thing. He was on a ventilator. And I remember praying for this guy. I didn't even know who he was. But I thought, if someone like him can go through this, anyone can. So I'm thankful that I lived through it, and it gives me a new perspective on life. And the clock is running. So there's an urgency now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's awesome, man. And you're right. It's, I'll share with you a practice, and this might be something you could integrate into your day, into your life, or one of our viewers. Y'all might integrate this into your life. This is something that I personally do. And I think that the reason I'm bringing this up is what you're saying really resonates with me, and to be aggressively thankful. Well, one of the things that I do is once a month or once every few months, I'll actually wake up in the morning, and as crazy as it sounds, I convince my subconscious mind that everyone I love has died. I've lost everything that I own. I own nothing. I'm homeless. My house burned down. My car got repoed. I have no money in the bank, and all my loved ones are gone. And for half a day to a day, I genuinely experience loss. And I'm just like devastated by the loss of everyone that I love. And then the next day, or later on that day, whenever I choose to transition from that, I transition into a thought of gratitude, because look, now I've got all these things back. I know what it's like to experience that loss, and I know how much, so it shows me how much I'm taking for granted the little bit of time I have with these people, and the little bit of things like having water in your home. Like people wake up every day and take a shower, and they don't stop to think about how big of a deal that is. If you've ever had your water shut off for even a week, you have a whole nother perspective on what it's like to have active plumbing. So yes, and that's right. And Tammy said urgency, and that's so true. And be grateful for your she said that she was grateful for your insight, Brian. Just a few shout outs here, just to give an idea. We've got Tammy that's watching, Nellie Johnson's watching. I appreciate all of y'all. We got Donald, Ula, Richard, Rachel, everybody that's in here. I appreciate all of y'all for joining. And man, like now that you're doing everything you're doing, you're out there, you're in front of people. Your show is like, I'm a little jealous. Like that thing is blowed up. You are absolutely phenomenal at what you do, and I always like bringing a pro onto the show. That's always fun.
Thank you.
So tell me, like, what was that, bro?
I said thank you.
Oh, okay, cool. Not a problem, man. Sorry, your screen. I saw your lips moving, but I didn't hear no noise. I wasn't sure what it was. But so. No. Now that you are you're out there in the public and people know who you are and what it is that you do, and you're impacting lives around the world, what I want to know is, what does staying humble really mean to you?
Well, it can all be taken away in a minute. So you have to stay humble, and you always have to remember where you started. It's so important. A lot of people who, and I'm not going to say I'm, famous. I'm I'm still me. I'm still the same guy. I put my pants on the same way. I go to sleep the same way everyone else does. And I'm just a guy. I'm just a normal guy who just is incredibly blessed to be able to do the thing that I love to do with my life. And I think anyone can do that. So just to realize that there are people in life who are much better at some things than I am. I mean, I'm better at some things than other people are, but other people are way better at some things than I am. So I think you just have to focus on your core area of genius and do that as much as possible, and source out the stuff that you're not good at. For example, when I do my magazine, I have a couple of graphic designers that I contract to work for me because I do not have that skill set. In fact, I tried to do it myself. I had a friend who said, "Oh, you can do your own graphic design on canva.com for free." I tried it, and I tried doing my very first magazine cover back in December. And after an hour, I came up with something that wasn't very good. I posted it on Facebook, and I got roasted, and royally roasted, and rightfully so. It was bad. But I will say this. I was so embarrassed that after 20 minutes, I took it down. But somebody had seen it. And so one of my Facebook friends who had never messaged me before messaged me and said, "Here, use this." And it was a much, much better mock-up of my front cover. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. How much do I owe you? He said, "Don't worry about it." And then I felt really bad having to say, can you please fix something? You spelled a couple words wrong. And so we very graciously fixed it. And I said, "I am so grateful. There's something that I've got to be able to do for you." He says, "Don't worry about it. I plan on asking you about book writing somewhere down the line." I thought, oh, that's so brilliant. Provide value first and ask later. That's what this guy did. And so the next month I said, would you be willing to do it again? I'd be willing to pay you. And he says, I'd love to, but I don't have time. I have a lot of my own projects going on and I'm just not going to have time. And so I ended up hiring the guy that does book covers and book layout for my ghostwriting clients. And I said, do you do magazines? He says, no, but I will do your cover. So I've got him doing my cover. I found someone on Fiverr to do the layout for my magazine, and he does a brilliant job. So you can find really good help, and it doesn't have to be very expensive. And
Yes.
I mean, you get what you pay for, but he's really good. He allows for unlimited revisions. He wants me to be happy, and he's called me his best client recently. So I'm happy. So in fact, it's interesting because I give him my magazine to work on every month. In fact, a few days ago, he says, so are you ready to start the new one yet? And I said, you know what? Thank you for getting back with me. I actually will be editing magazine articles this weekend, which I did last weekend, and I sent it to him last night. And that was the last productive thing that I did yesterday, was to send him all the photos and all the files and all the articles. And so I imagine in about 5 or 6 days from now, I will have this first draft and the circle begins again. Yeah. So he does a really great job.
You're going to have to connect me to who it is that does your stuff, because, I mean, you don't have to, but I would like that, because personally, I build all my graphics. And my promos that I build, as you can see, they're very extensive. They're very customized, and I'm very nitpicky as to how I do them. But it would be nice to not have to build every one of them out, because they take time. And being someone who's attempted to build that kind of stuff, I'm sure you can kind of feel the pain of having to go through there and do all that. So like that's a huge thing in business that they need to understand. And I should have covered that in my video this morning. And that is service for service. Like, look, back in the day, before there was paper money, it was services. Like, when people wanted something done, I'll help you build your house if you'll help me build my barn, kind of deal. So you trade services back and forth, and that's one of the ways that you dominate and you go to the top. So yeah, you're on point with that. And that leads me into my next question, and that is, how can we as a community here at Stay Humble Hustle Hard Live support you, Mr. Wright?
Wow, that's really great. Well, you can listen to my show, Success Profiles Radio. I'm interviewing Seth Green today. He's a marketing expert. Yeah, he's amazing. It's his second time on my show. He's the only person that Dan Kennedy has nominated for his Marketer of the Year award 3 times. So the guy's brilliant. He's contributed to my show.
He was great.
Yeah. He's fantastic. Really brilliant. He contributes to my magazine, Success Profiles magazine, very regularly. And it's so funny because he's like, a friend of his was on my cover earlier this year, and he's like, so Brian, when's it my turn? Now, normally when someone says something like that to me, I say, well, first of all, you got to be on my radio show first. And second of all, my covers are booked for months. But for this guy, I got him in as soon as possible because he is a very faithful contributor. He's been on my show. I know him. I like him. I trust him. So I do that. But how can you support me? Listen to my show, Success Profiles Radio. You can download and subscribe on iTunes. That would be awesome. And the other thing that you can do if you really want to is pick up my book. It's on Amazon. It's in Barnes & Noble. It's called Success Profiles, Conversations with High Achievers.
Yes. So when you get off here, can you drop a link so where we can buy that?
Absolutely. It's on Amazon. I can do that. But I interviewed Darren Hardy, Sharon Lechter, Jack Canfield, Tom Ziegler, Loral Langemeier, Debbie Allen, Greg Reed, Frank Shankowitz. Oh yeah, 11 of my favorite interviews from the early portion of my show, the early few years. I'm working on a second edition of that. It'll be Conversations with High Achievers Volume 2. Kevin Harrington's going to be the lead feature interview on that one.
Woo! Boy, you're bringing in some big dogs.
Yeah, Kevin Harrington, Marshall Silver, Jonathan Horton, Olympic gymnast. He'll be in it, and those are just a few. And I'm so fired up and looking forward to it. See, this is the beautiful thing about interviewing really amazing people is you can put them in a book. You can leverage their audience. Hopefully they'll promote it too. And people who know who people are, like everyone, I mean, almost everyone knows who Kevin Harrington is. He's got a huge crowd, and I can email him anytime and ask him a question. And he'll usually answer back.
See, that's awesome.
So, and that's a beautiful thing too about being connected to so many amazing people on my show and staying connected with them, always providing value rather than asking for things, because I'm doing my Authorpreneur live event in the spring, probably in April. I'm actually going to be doing the virtual edition of that in late November. The site is not live yet, but it will be very shortly. It'll be authorpreneurlive.com. Mm-hmm. So in early November, probably next week, if you go to authorpreneurlive.com and you want to know more about writing books and marketing and everything that goes into being an author and leveraging that in your business, that's a virtual event that you really want to attend. It'll be a 2-day event on Wednesday, the 28th of November and Thursday, the 29th. I already have committed to appear Loral Langemeier, Debbie Allen, Eric Lofholm, and I've got hopefully a few others I can't name yet because they haven't officially picked a date yet, but I've got some other heavy hitters that are going to be there too. And so I'm looking for 12 sessions and 6 a day, and it's going to be amazing. And the recordings will be for sale afterwards, and I will be offering discounted tickets to my live event at my virtual. You can attend the virtual event for free.
That's cool.
So I'm excited.
Yeah, man, I would be too, and that's awesome to hear that you've had all these great people on your show. I thought that I was cool because I had like Tom Ziegler and Manny Lopez, and I actually Seth Green's Sharkpreneur podcast. That was the first show I had ever been on.
Wow.
I had never been on a podcast or a show before, and Seth came to me and asked me to be on his Sharkpreneur deal, and I was like, "Holy crap!" Like, it was, to me, awesome. That was huge. That was my profile picture for the longest time. Was with Seth Green and Kevin Harrington. I was like, "Wow."
Yeah. Well, my cover photo on my Facebook is Kevin Harrington shaking my hand right before he starts speaking on stage.
So that's what I must have put in your promo. That must be because I snatch pictures from everywhere, crop them out, and put them in my promo.
Yeah. The cool thing about that particular picture, I did not know that picture was about to be taken, but when I renewed the domain for successprofilesmagazine.com for the 3rd year and realized I had not yet done anything about it, I realized, okay, it's time. It's time to do a magazine. Who can my first cover be? And so I've already interviewed Kevin Harrington. I reached out to him and I said, Kevin, thank you once again for being on my show a few months ago. I have a new project. It's called Success Profiles Magazine. I want you to be on my first cover. I've already interviewed you. I will curate material from that interview and make it the feature article. No extra effort or time is required of you. I just need your best resolution photo. And he said, yeah, I'm in. He emailed me back less than 90 minutes later and said, yeah, let's do this. I'm in. And so I went to an event in December that he was speaking at, and I got to meet him in person. He saw me and he recognized me immediately. He said, Brian. I said, hey, Kevin. And so I printed out some copies of the magazine. He says, oh, this is really cool. I like the cover. And he said, part of my presentation is about digital marketing. Is it okay if I hold up your magazine in front of the whole room? I'm like, yeah, yeah. And he did. But before he spoke, he chose to speak in front of the stage, not actually on stage. I think he wanted to be closer to his audience. But he walked right up to me. I was in the front row. And he said, thank you, Brian. I said, you're welcome, Kevin. And that shot was him giving me a high five and shaking my hand right before he started his talk. And I'm so grateful that a photographer caught that moment. It would not have occurred to me. I didn't even know that moment was happening. But a couple weeks after the event, I saw that photo and I was happy and joyful, and I cried, and I was just so grateful. I'm like, that's my photo. That's my cover photo. And it has been ever since.
Awesome, dude. That is absolutely awesome. And it is like that right there. It shows it makes you more of an authority than you were before. And I mean, that gives you more credibility than what you had. I mean, that's like when you see people all the time in their speaker reels. Everybody's got them. They're taking pictures with Les Brown, and some people got it with Zig Ziglar and Tony Robbins, all these people, and that's something that's essential. Plus, in people's business, if you do get an opportunity to collaborate or connect with big people like that, record it.
Yep.
So, man, my final question for you. I know we kept you on here longer than I was supposed to because I personally made the mistake and took the long walk this morning, didn't realize that I was taking so much time up. So I have my final question for you, and it's my favorite to ask anybody, and that is, if you only had 5 minutes to live and the entire world could hear you speak, what would be your message to the world?
Don't play small. The world needs you, and give and share love with as many people as you can, because you don't know when your time is up.
That's it. That's it. All right. Hey, short, sweet, and to the point. I love it.
Absolutely.
He said, I'm going to give y'all a little bit and spend the rest of that 5 minutes with my family because I ain't got long to be here.
Yeah,
so anyway,
pretty much.
brother,
I would want, if possible, I would want my last 5 minutes to be with my family and the people that I cared about the most.
Okay. That's wonderful. And that's where most of us would be. It's just when I ask that question, what I'm really asking is what matters most to people. Because if you had 5 minutes to live and every person on the planet would literally stop and just listen, and whatever you said is what they would hear it. Like I find that when you ask that question to people, you really find out what's most important to them.
Yeah, I mean, I would elaborate on those ideas a little bit more, but I mean, in a nutshell, my idea would be don't play small. The world needs you, and love everybody you can while you can, because you don't know when it's going to end. I mean, those would be the two main things I would share.
Absolutely, brother. Well, thank you so very much for coming on to the show. I apologize for the technical difficulties in the beginning, but it is a live show and things happen.
Yeah, and I'm so happy and grateful that everyone is listening who's here. Thanks everyone for your comments and your love. And once again, download and subscribe to Success Profiles Radio. And after this is over with, after you post this, I will post the link so that you can get this book, Success Profiles, Conversations with High Achievers. It's in Barnes & Noble. It's on Amazon. And I would appreciate some support. That'd be great.
Absolutely, man. Is that so? Besides that, do you have any final calls to action for anybody today?
I would say find the thing that you were meant to do with your life and start doing it. Find your zone of genius. The world needs you, whether you think they do or not, because there's somebody out there who needs whatever it is that you know. And I had a guest on my show several years ago. The last thing he said to my guests was, have a conversation with someone who inspires you every single day. I do my best to do that, even if it's just a Facebook chat, but just be present with people and love people and give to people, because it comes back in ways that you don't know. Here's the thing. When you give to someone, don't expect to receive back in the same way. I think sometimes this is why people give money, because they expect money's going to come back to them. But you know what? Sometimes what you receive in return is an opportunity, which could provide much more value to you down the line. But just keep putting love out to the universe. Keep giving in whatever way you can, and you will be rewarded for it somehow. I don't know how. I don't promise how it's going to happen, but I do believe that we have an abundant God who is able and willing to give you his entire kingdom if you let him.
I love it, brother. So thank you so very much for being on the show. You're absolutely phenomenal guest. So man, you're like I said, you're awesome. You dropped some wisdom here. And by the way, y'all, if y'all were enjoying this, please drop #WisdomBomb down in the comments, because you know here on the show, that's what we do. We drop wisdom bombs all over the battlefield of life. So anyway, yeah, buddy.
You're awesome, Tucker.
You're awesome, buddy. Thank you so very much for joining. And so I will see you next time on Stay Humble, Hustle Hard Live. For those of y'all who joined in, thank you so very much. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. If y'all missed any episodes of Stay Humble, Hustle Hard Live or Tucker's Morning Motivation, all you have to do is go to tuckerbearden.com. I've got each and every one of them out there. Here soon, all the episodes will be out on YouTube and other platforms. So I appreciate y'all so very much. A final shout out to all my sponsors of the day: Limitless Digital Media, Stern Marketing Academy, Mindset Mastery by Keith Newman, Universal Smart Apps by Manny Lopez, the internationally awarded best-selling author Robert J. Moore, BMC Accounting LLC with Brandon Cox, and James Merrifield Inspires Networks by James Merrifield. I appreciate each and every one of y'all. Y'all are absolutely awesome. If you saw this live, drop a hashtag live. If you saw this on the replay, drop a hashtag replay. And don't forget, smash that share button, because you never know who needed to hear this message this morning. So thank you all very much. Have a blessed day. I will see you next time on Stay Humble, Hustle Hard Live.